Hey, how's everybody doing? All right. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. So we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Hey, be sure to share this broadcast on your own Facebook page and invite your friends to tune in also. So I wanted to talk about this story about Erykah Badu. Okay, and you may have seen, we posted an article about this on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. And, once again, I haven't been able to broadcast on Facebook Live from my laptop because my hard drive crashed on my laptop. I had to put it in the shop. I just got it back yesterday, I think it was. I just got it back. So I broadcasted this morning. You saw that. And we're here again, okay? So Erykah Badu did an interview with Vulture magazine, and the interview was published January 24th, 2018, okay? And she made some comments in the article, in the interview. They were asking about her career, today's music, hip hop, things like this. She was interviewed by the person's name who interviewed her. His name is David Marchese. David Marchese. And she made some comments about Louis Farrakhan, Minister Louis Farrakhan, but also Hitler. And her comments about Adolf Hitler really caused people to think twice, and a lot of people were confused by her comments, okay? So AtlantaBlackStar.com has a couple of articles about this, and I went through and read the article. I read the interview from Vulture magazine, and I just finished doing that, all right? So if we look at the article from AtlantaBlackStar.com called "After Erykah Badu Refused to Take Back Her Praise for Louis Farrakhan, Things Quickly Spiral Out of Control." Things quickly spiral out of control. And that's from January 24th, 2018. In the article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, it quotes Erykah Badu saying, "Louis Farrakhan is not an anti-Semite. He loves all people." Okay, now those were the words spoken by Erykah Badu during a 2008 interview with the Israeli publication Haaretz, Haaretz. And at the time, she received a lot of backlash for those comments, especially from local press, because she was in Israel back in 2008. And the article from AtlantaBlackStar.com goes on to say, for decades now, Minister Farrakhan has been accused by many of being anti-Semitic, and he's been heavily denounced by the Jewish organization, the Anti-Defamation League, and others. However, much of the African-American community has stood behind Minister Farrakhan and the work he's done through the Nation of Islam. So then it goes on to talk about her interview with the Vulture. And so what happened was David Marchese, who interviewed her for the Vulture magazine, he said that when I was doing research for this interview, I came across an article from after you had gone to Israel, where the Israeli press was linking you to Minister Louis Farrakhan and his alleged anti-Semitism, and it seemed that you were being criticized for defending him rather than denouncing anti-Semitism. He goes on to say, "I don't know if those reports were accurate, but isn't it valid to criticize the hurtful idea in an instance like that, even if you respect the person who holds that idea?" So Erykah Badu responds and says, "Absolutely, but I never made a statement about Louis Farrakhan ever. What you're talking about happened in Palestine. At the time, the working title of my album was Savior's Day, okay, which is a holiday for the Nation of Islam, but also my birthday. So I had gone to Palestine, and journalists asked me, quote, 'Do you believe in Louis Farrakhan? Do you follow him?' End quote." Okay, so she was in Palestine, and she responded, "Sure I do. I'll follow anyone who has positive aspects He single-handedly changed half of the Nation of Islam to clean eating, clean living, caring for their families. He has flaws like any man, but I'm not responsible for that. I said I have appreciated what he's done for a lot of Black Americans. I mean, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Christian, I'm not anything. I'm an observer who can see good things and bad things. If you say something good about someone, people think it means that you've chosen a side. But I don't choose sides, I see all sides simultaneously. So David Marchese, the interviewer, responds, that's not something most of us are good at, okay? And she goes on to say, we're not, and I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with anything I had to say about Louis Farrakhan, but I'm not an anti-Semitic person. I don't even know what anti-Semitic was before I was called it. I am a humanist. I see good in everybody. I saw something good in Hitler, referring to Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. She said, I saw something good in Hitler. So David Marchese responds, come again? And she said, yeah, I did. Hitler was a wonderful painter, P-A-I-N-T-E-R. Hitler was a wonderful painter. Okay, this is Erykah Badu, the interview published by Vulture magazine, January 24th, 2018. And she's talking about how she sees, she does not choose sides, she sees all sides simultaneously. And she says she saw something good in Adolf Hitler, who not just killed 6 million Jews, but also killed 50,000 Afro-Germans as well. That's not talked about. So David Marchese responds, no, he wasn't. He wasn't a good painter. And even if he was, what would his skill as a painter have to do with any quote unquote good in him? So Erykah Badu says, okay, he was a terrible painter. Poor thing. He had a terrible childhood. That means that when I'm looking at my daughter, Mars, her daughter's name is Mars, I could imagine her being in someone else's home and being treated so poorly and what that could spawn. I see things like that. I guess it's just the Pisces in me, okay, because she's a Pisces, that's her astronomical sign. So the response from that caused a lot of social media buzz and criticism on social media. David Marchese responded, I'm perfectly willing to accept that you might be operating on a higher moral plane than I am, but I think going down the route of Hitler was a child once too is maybe turning the idea of empathy into an empty abstraction. So Erykah Badu responds, maybe so. It doesn't test my limits. I can see this clearly. I don't care if the whole group saw something. I'm going to be honest. I know I don't have the most popular opinion sometimes. And David Marchese said, but don't you think that someone as evil as Hitler, who did what he did, has forfeited the right to other people's empathy? And she said, why can't I say what I'm saying because he did such terrible things? Why can't I say what I'm saying? Because he did such terrible things. Okay. So this is what caused the social media buzz. So AtlantaBlackStar.com published an article, a follow-up article, yesterday, January 25th, 2018. So Erykah Badu has tried to clarify her statements. So Erykah Badu responds to misunderstood comments about Hitler. She says, I don't want to force you to understand the way I love. I'm hopeful though. Okay. So in the article, it talks about how she was saying I'm not an anti-Semitic person. She was addressing her previous defense of Minister Farrakhan and her comments, etc. And it talks about her comments about Hitler was a wonderful painter, etc. Okay, so you have people responding on social media, and let's scroll down here. Okay, so she said, okay, so Erykah Badu cleared things up in a series of tweets on Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday, January 24th, Thursday, January 25th. She initially blamed clickbait, and then said she, quote, used one of the worst examples possible not to support the cruel actions of an unwell, psychopathic Adolf Hitler, but to only exaggerate a show of compassion. But to only exaggerate a show of compassion, quote unquote. Now, Erykah Badu also hoped people would read the entire article, which I did. I just read it before we broadcasted, rather than taking the headline, making quotes, and running with them. And this is why I shared her comments with you as well. Okay. So on Twitter, she said, say what you must. Dialogue is cool. I invite it, but please do me a favor if you can, Black and Jewish Twitter. Just don't use the word, quote unquote, problematic anymore. Y'all using that too much. Oh, and read the article. So that was January 24th, 2018 at 2:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. She posted on Twitter. And then she followed that tweet up at 5:25 p.m., January 24th. She said, the media is banking on our ignorance. No, we won't, KNOW. No, we won't read the whole thing, or they know we won't read the whole thing. They'll use controversial quotes with trigger words as clickbait. We love controversy. We heart controversy. We love controversy. So blogs choose easiest thing to spin. Get you mad, help you get a little rage out. They get more ads. The message lost. She said ADDS, but it's actually ADS, advertisements. So clickbait is using inflammatory headlines, for those that don't know, in social media, things, right? Clickbait means using inflammatory headlines that get you to click on the article and hopefully click on the ads in the article, because that generates revenue for the publisher of that ad. Okay. So that was a follow-up article from AtlantaBlackStar.com, and then she did another tweet January 25th, 8:22 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. She said, so I understand why my good intent was misconstrued as bad. In trying to express a point, I understand one of the worst examples possible, not to support the cruel actions of an unwell psychopathic Adolf Hitler, but to only exaggerate a show of compassion. She then followed that tweet up at 11:13 a.m., January 25th, and she said, either you read the entire Vulture interview and you understand the message of compassion clearly, or you only read the selective, out of context headlines and were drawn in to the whirlpool of collective emotional grief. I don't want to force you to understand the way I love. I'm hopeful though. Okay. So we read the comments from, I read the comments from the Vulture article to put this in context. So we don't, because a lot of people just take the quote about Hitler was a good painter, and they run with that. So I shared extensively a lot of the comments from the article from Vulture, and I talked about, I dealt with the questions and comments from the interviewer and her responses as well, so we can put all this into context and better understand this. All right. So I think she meant well, but she chose a horrible example in Adolf Hitler. I mean, my God, she chose a horrible example. I don't know if she knew he killed 50,000 Afro-Germans, because most African Americans don't know this. So whoever her in the interview, and you can read it yourself, vulture.com. In the interview, she said that he could ask her whatever questions he wanted to ask her. Okay. So in case you were seeing this story about Erykah Badu and things like this. And we know Erykah Badu is a little special. We all know this. She's, I mean, she, she's, I mean, to me, she, you know, I like Erykah Badu. She's a little weird to me. I'm just saying. All right. There's nothing disrespectful, but then, okay. All right. All right. But the name of the article from vulture.com, which is the actual interview, is called In Conversation, Erykah Badu. In Conversation, Erykah Badu. The R&B star on Jedi Mind Tricks, How Millennials Hear Music, and Not Taking Rappers to the Sunken Place. Okay, that's written by David Marchese for vulture.com. All right, you can check that out. All right, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Should have said that earlier. I was trying to jump into this. Let's go to some of your comments here. And once again, share this broadcast on your own Facebook page as well. And invite your friends to tune in also. And listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Share this broadcast on Facebook. All right, so we'll go to some of your comments here. And if you want to advertise with the African History Network, normally on Thursdays, you know, I broadcast on Blog Talk Radio. We do our full radio show. I broadcast on Blog Talk Radio. It's normally 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just got my laptop back yesterday and wasn't able to do that because my hard drive crashed. I had to buy a new hard drive. I was reinstalling software. I lost a lot of my files, a lot of my research, lost a lot of PowerPoint presentations I've done. I got to go back and recreate a lot of that from my lectures. I lost a lot of stuff. Some things were backed up, some things weren't. But if you want to advertise with the African History Network, hey, email us at info@africanhistorynetwork.com. info@africanhistorynetwork.com. If you want to advertise with the African History Network, and we'll run your ad on the African History Network show also. Okay, and we'll put in our email newsletter. We have a whole marketing platform for you. Okay, so info@africanhistorynetwork.com. All right. All right, and we have a new, we'll go to your comments here in just a minute, so just a second. And we also have a new sponsor, which is Afroganics, G-A-N-I-X, Afroganics.co, Afroganics.co. This is like an online Black Wall Street. If you are a business owner, small business owner, African-American owned business, Afroganics is a multi-vendor e-commerce platform that allows customers to purchase items, book services, make appointments, make reservations at restaurants, put in food orders at restaurants, and order groceries, etc., and so much more. They feature more than 200 categories. Okay, Afroganics will showcase your African American owned business of all types. And Afroganics launches in April 2018 for customers. Business owners can register right now. Visit Afroganics.com, G-A-N-I-X, Afroganics.com. Okay, and if you sign up in the month of January, of 2018, your store will be free until July 2018. So you sign up right now. We know African American History Month is coming up. A lot of people want to buy things from African American owned businesses in the month of February. Okay, and Afroganics takes absolutely no commissions ever. So visit Afroganics.com, G-A-N-I-X, Afroganics.com, and sign up today. All right, let's go to your comments here. Let's see. Greg Carlin said, Hotep, content without context is pretext. Asante Sana, which means thank you in Kiswahili. All right. Okay. And What else we have here? Tammy said, what is the problem of her saying what she feels? Well, when you're, it's afroganics.co, okay. Well, when you're doing an interview like that and millions of people are going to read it, it needs to make sense somewhat, because you're going to be asked about it. It needs to make some type of sense. She admitted that's a horrible example, okay. She admitted that's a horrible example of Adolf Hitler. Leslie is in Chicago. And okay, how you doing, Leslie? Let's see. Sheila Moore said, you are making a mountain out of a molehill. The subject is just dumb. Well, it's not me making it. This is social media. I'm clarifying it. And there are articles written about it. So I was sharing the excerpts from the interview to put this in context. Actually, people on social media were making a bigger deal out of it. I shared her explanation about it. Still a terrible example, but I shared her explanation about it. So Evan Dixon said, she just said it was a horrible because of the backlash. Made sense to me. Donna X says she chose to speak her mind about how she loves, and we are all a little weird and special. Now, with that being said, let the perfect man or woman please stand up. It's not about being perfect. This is about understanding when you do interviews, and I'm somebody who I conduct interviews. I've been interviewed. You can look at I was just on 9:10 a.m. this morning. Co-hosting, you could say, with David Bullock, but he was asking me questions. I do radio. I've done national radio, guest hosted Roland Martin's national radio show a number of times. I used to guest host Warren Ballantyne's show. I'm somebody who does radio. I do interviews. I've interviewed everybody from Dr. Francis Cress Welsing to Thelma from Good Times, Bernadette Stannis. I do interviews. When you are being interviewed in something like Vulture magazine, and millions of people are going to read that and read it online, right? You have to be cognizant of your answers and how people are going to interpret these answers. I'm serious, because backlash will happen. You have to be able to think multiple moves ahead, okay? I'm somebody who's actually in media. There's a reason why I have 1 million followers on our Facebook page. I built it to 1 million. So I understand media. I've been studying media for 25 years. Let's see. We got Sheila. Craig said, do you mean special as in artistic genius? No. Special? No. Well, you could say special. She's, well, you know, I like her, but she's a little weird also. Erykah Badu's a little weird as well. I'm just saying. But, you know, I remember when she first came out back in '97. You know, I think I have her tape around somewhere. I think I bought it on tape, '97. I was still buying CDs, but I think I bought it on tape. Or I may have CD. I don't remember. I have a big box of CDs and cassette tapes. So Daryl Kirkpatrick said, we as humans are all imperfect. The best person in the world isn't all good, and the worst person in the world isn't all bad. That is her ultimate message. Well, yeah, she says she's a humanist. She talks about being a Pisces. She talks about the two fish, one fish swimming upstream, one fish swimming downstream. So she sees all sides. It's just a terrible example. That's kind of like the people like Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, who's one of the most ignorant Negroes you ever want to meet. It's like that argument that he said, I'm glad that slavery happened because it took black people out of Africa and brought us to America so we could get Christianity. That's a terrible example. That's a terrible, and he knows nothing about history either, because Christianity has its origins in Africa. This is a terrible example. Okay. Udell Bowler says, speak on it, Brother Michael. Or it was just like some black people, some African Americans who say, I'm glad Donald Trump won because now this is going to force black people to work together. Well, black people were already working together before Donald Trump won. Maybe you weren't one of them. The Colin Kaepernick protest didn't start under Trump. That started under Obama. Black Lives Matter didn't start under Trump. That started under Obama. The Black Bank movement, hashtag bank in. The Black Bank movement didn't start under Donald Trump. That started under President Obama. There were African Americans working together before Trump. Now, you may not have been one of them, but there were African Americans already working together before Trump. Okay, so Aula said, not so, she has free mind clarity. Brian Grimes said, George Washington did terrible things and we label him a hero. Well, some people label him a hero. Not the people who he did terrible things to. And many of the descendants of those he did terrible things to don't label him as a hero. But we've been taught that George Washington was a hero. Well, he's the first president of this country under the U.S. Constitution. So we've been taught that he was a hero. You know, he enslaved 318 people. Now he ain't killed 6 million. You know, but he was a white supremacist, racist bigot. As well. Now he ain't killed 6 million. Okay, so Anthony Irby said Erykah was trolling the interviewer by bringing up there is good in everyone, then mentioning Hitler because she knew he was of Jewish descent. I don't think she was trolling him. Now, if you read the entire article and then read the follow-up to it, I don't think she was trolling him at all. I read the entire article, then I read her follow-up tweets to explain it. So I don't think she was trolling him. Okay. So you got Daryl in Seattle listening. Share this broadcast on your own Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. We'll be broadcasting live from the studios at 9:10 a.m. the Superstation on Sunday. I'm on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also coming up, we know African American History Month is coming up in February, right? So I will be doing a number of presentations Saturday, February 3rd, Sunday, February 4th at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe located at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan, 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. I'll be doing a presentation Saturday, February 3rd, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. That presentation, I do a presentation each year. Should African Americans celebrate Black History Month? Should African Americans celebrate Black History Month? And it's called Exposing the Myths. So I deal with the history of African American History Month, which most of our people don't know. A lot of the African American History Month celebrations we see really are done by people who don't understand the history of the celebration, don't understand Dr. Carter G. Woodson, don't understand why the celebration was created. A lot of these really are celebrating, are practicing the celebration incorrectly because we don't understand the original intent. And this is why they keep bringing out the same 15 to 20 sanitized Negroes every year. And the way some of these celebrations take place is really, you know, a mockery and doing a disservice to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. So as one of my teachers, Professor Kaba Kamene, talks about, Professor Booker T. Coleman, he says to understand the existence of something, you first have to understand the pre-existence of existence. To understand the existence of something, you first have to understand the pre-existence of existence. So one of the things I deal with in the presentation is we deal with the whole history of it. We deal with the history of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, because you have to study Dr. Carter G. Woodson first. So we deal with that. Then we dispel myths in our history, like, was the Black John Hanson president? I still hear people talking about John Hanson was president, John Hanson was president. The Black John Hanson was not president for a number of reasons why. On the back of the $2 bill, there is no person of African descent. There's John Hanson's not on the back of the $2 bill. All that stuff we need to throw in the garbage can. That nonsense we need to throw in the garbage can, just like the Willie Lynch speech. The Willie Lynch letter. Willie Lynch never historically existed. Throw that thing in the garbage can. Study real history. So those are some of the things I do within the presentation. So the first day, February 3rd, 2018, at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe, 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. Highland Park is a small city. It's an enclave. It's a small city inside of Detroit. And it's a free event, donations accepted. And then the next day, Sunday, February 4th, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., we'll deal with the light of ancient Egypt awakens the African mind. The light of ancient Egypt awakens the African mind. And I deal with history coming from ancient Kemet and tie ancient Kemet to the Africans known as the Moors who go into Europe in 711 AD, and they're in Europe 800 years approximately. And I deal with Freemasonry, and I deal with some of the things the Moors took into Europe and how that impacted Europe, okay? And I deal with African history. We'll talk about economic empowerment. It's a lot. The light of ancient Egypt awakens the African mind. And that's a really, really good presentation to do during African American History Month. I actually did part of that presentation at a church last year, February 2017, and it blew the people away. I did it in Lansing, Michigan also back in February last year. So actually that presentation, I originally did it February 25th, 2017, okay? And that was the day my daughter was born. That was the presentation I did the day my daughter was born. And actually, you know, my daughter she was overdue. We didn't expect her to come that day. And I was actually doing a lecture when she was born. So that's a story to tell everybody. Daddy was doing a lecture when I was born. Okay, but that's what happened. You know, so in Lansing, Michigan was the home of Malcolm X. Malcolm used to live in Lansing, Michigan. Then he leaves Lansing, Michigan and moves to East Lansing, Michigan. Okay, so that's a 2-day lecture series I'm doing at the new Nandy's Knowledge Cafe in Highland Park, Michigan. All right. And let's see here. This froze up. All right. Hopefully this clears up. Okay, so we're about to get out of here. So visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll have the flyers at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll get that up this weekend. Because because my hard drive crashed, I lost a lot of files. I'm reinstalling software now. Okay, so I just reinstalled. I was up late last night somewhat, and I just reinstalled Photoshop because I use Photoshop to do my flyers. So I'm reinstalling software, things like that. So it's a very, very busy weekend. Okay. All right, but you can order all my DVD lectures at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This is one of my latest ones. This is the racist history of the white national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance, the racist history of the white national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. And then I tie all that history into the history of Colin Kaepernick's protest. See me with my Colin Kaepernick shirt on. I'm not going to stand for a flag that oppresses black people. We've got the 1804 documentary. We'll be shipping orders out this weekend. The 1804 documentary dealing with the hidden history of the Haitian Revolution. This is from producers of Hidden Colors. We've got the Hidden Colors documentaries. We have my lectures. We've got the presentation I've done. You know, Dr. King Day was earlier this month. My presentation, The Distortion of the Legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Revolutionary, will not be televised on the television. Okay, we have that, a lot of other things. A presentation I did in June on Malcolm X. Malcolm X, 50 years later, why is he still relevant? I have about 35 of my presentations at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we have bundle packs also. Okay, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. That helps support the African History Network, helps us keep broadcasting, keep doing the research, etc. All right. Okay, so remember at the so let's see if there are any more comments here. Terry Miller said Willie Lynch letter never existed. I just listened to a pastor explain why black people are in the state we in earlier today. Who was that pastor? He said, now you say the letter never existed. Who am I to believe? Well, I don't deal with beliefs. I deal with facts and evidence. Number one, and I'll challenge anybody on this. First of all, Dr. Kwabena Ashanti has come out in a minute. He wrote the Willie Lynch letter. He wrote it in 1970. Two, if you watch the video that I did, and it's on our YouTube channel, search for Michael Imhotep on YouTube, IMHOTEP. You can watch the video I did breaking down the Willie Lynch letter. There are words in the Willie Lynch letter that didn't even exist in 1712. You got to understand history. You have to understand language. You have to understand sentence structure. Okay? There are words in the Willie Lynch letter that did not exist in the early 18th century. Okay? So I'll debate anybody on this. I'll challenge anybody on this. You can listen to the interviews I did with Professor Manu Ampem, because Professor Manu Ampem, he was one of the first ones that really who provided evidence that really went in depth into this. He wrote 3 articles. You can visit his website, manuampem.com, MANUAMPIM, manuampem.com. And he wrote 3 articles dealing with death to the Willie Lynch speech. So there's overwhelming evidence to prove that it's a fraud. Willie Lynch is not mentioned by any abolitionists. When you read actual historical texts, and they talk about historical contemporaries, when you read about texts, historical texts from the 18th century, Willie Lynch is not mentioned in any of that. Okay, so there's overwhelming evidence to prove that Willie Lynch, number one, never historically existed. 2, the Willie Lynch letter is a fraud. That thing was written in 1970. That thing wasn't written in 1712. There are words in there like self-refueling, which comes from the 20th century auto industry. So in the video I did a couple months ago, it's on YouTube. You can check that out. I go through and show extensively understanding history, understanding language, understanding sentence structure, understanding the early 18th century. Willie Lynch never historically existed. This is why you don't hear any abolitionists. When you read historical texts of African Americans who lived around that period of time, they don't mention no Willie Lynch. Come on. So some people say, oh, the letter was on point. Not really, not if you understand history, really wasn't on point. Where do you read about the tall being separated from the short? See, we give too much power to Europeans. This is why you keep getting your behind whipped. We give too much power to Europeans in mythology and fairy tales and don't want to deal with real history. So you got some of our people that want to deal with this is why we're in the predicament because of this letter. And don't understand real history. Never read The Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor Williams. Never read Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. See, I got to get another copy. See, my book is falling apart. Never read Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr. Read this. You know, even Dr. Claude Anderson, one of my teachers in 2013, Dr. Claude Anderson in New York did a lecture. I think it was at the Black Arts Theater. And he said, don't waste your time with the Willie Lynch letter. He said, Willie Lynch never historically existed. He said, I did all type of research. I can't find Willie Lynch anywhere. And he talked about Willie Lynch originally in Dirty Little Secrets About Black History, Volume 1. I think it was Volume 1 or Volume 2. We talked about probably Volume 1. He talked about John Hanson also. I had to send him some information like that with Black John Hanson was the president. Okay. So we need to separate real history from mythology and nonsense. Okay. Because too many of our people buy into this nonsense and it's not getting you anywhere. That's why you can't figure, you will never understand how you got into a predicament until you understand the actual history of how you got into that predicament. Not mythology. That's not going to work. Okay. So when you study real history, there's no Willie Lynch nowhere in that. So watch the video that I did. Okay. Sheila Moore on Facebook said, yes, this is something worth talking about. Lies and truth. Tell me something that really matters. I'm here for this conversation. I thought the letter was real. Yeah, see, people thought it was real. No, it was not real. But the only people who think it's real are people who don't actually understand our history. And a people's history and culture teaches you how to deal with the problems of the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community, because things happen in cycles. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past, in the present, and the future to meet the needs of the community. So how are you going to do that dealing with fairy tales and dealing with myths? So just because a Christmas gift is underneath the Christmas tree on Christmas morning does not mean Santa Claus brought the Christmas gift. The evidence is there. Yeah, it's there. That doesn't mean Santa Claus brought it. So what happens if you think that Santa Claus brought this Christmas gift? And then you write letters to Santa Claus. And you want to figure out, how does Santa Claus visit all these homes around the world in one night? So now you want to do a documentary. And you're trying to raise funding to get a documentary done to study Santa Claus and to track Santa Claus. And you're trying to figure out, how does he do this with 9 reindeer? And all this is nonsense. But unfortunately, too many of our people are dealing with nonsense all across the board. So Stephen Biko, one of our great South African freedom fighters, said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. The most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Okay, so we have to take our minds back.